In early November of 1997, a series of peculiar sessions compelled a child psychologist in Maine to reach out to the authorities. It all started when one of his young patients began speaking about a friend. This so-called friend, as far as the psychologists and the boy's parents were concerned, was imaginary. The boy referred to him as Mr. Smile, often mentioning him during their sessions. He explained that Mr. Smile was always grinning, and whenever he was around, the boy felt an overwhelming sense of happiness. The boy described it as a feeling that everything was perfectly fine. Struggling with anger and depression, the boy admitted that these emotions would vanish when Mr. Smile appeared. This figure never spoke, the boy said, but would simply stand silently at the foot of his bed. He smelled of candy floss, and his mere presence brought a sense of calm and safety. At first, the psychologist dismissed Mr. Smile as a coping mechanism, a way for the boy to handle the tumultuous home environment that had likely fueled his temper issues. But then, a 9-year-old girl began mentioning her own imaginary friend, also called Mr. Smile, and then a 7-year-old boy, and then a 12-year-old boy, and then an 11-year-old girl. In total, nearly 15 patients started talking about Mr. Smile. Initially, the psychologist chalked it up to coincidence. After all, imaginary friends are common, and the description of Mr. Smile was vague enough not to raise immediate alarms. But as patient after patient spoke of him, using the exact same name and description, his unease grew. He decided to probe deeper. Every single child described Mr. Smile in identical terms, using eerily similar phrasing. This uniformity was impossible to ignore. The psychologists knew these children couldn't have shared or rehearsed their stories. Some, for instance, were homeschooled and rarely left their homes except for errands with their parents. This led to a troubling realization. The psychologist approached the children's parents individually, choosing his words carefully to avoid revealing too much. He explained that a concerning pattern had emerged across multiple sessions and expressed his belief that their child might be at risk. With the parents' consent, he prepared to take the matter to the authorities, assuring them they would be kept informed every step of the way. Over the following week, the police interviewed the children about their mysterious friend. They pressed for details about his appearance, but the children couldn't describe him beyond his smile and a cryptic statement. "He's not like us." The officers also asked how he entered their homes and what he said or did during his visits. By this time, the psychologist, parents, and police were all convinced that Mr. Smile was not just a figment of imagination, but a real and potentially dangerous individual. The authorities conducted a thorough investigation and confirmed there were no known predators in the area. Yet the evidence suggested someone had been entering these children's homes at night. The children, however, couldn't explain how he got in. They would simply wake up to find him standing silently at the foot of their beds. Occasionally, they said, he would hum a lullaby in English that made them feel inexplicably safe. When asked to draw Mr. Smile, every child chose a red crayon and filled their entire page with solid red. When questioned about this, they insisted they had drawn him perfectly. Any attempt to point out that their drawings didn't depict a figure, just a block of color, was met with anger. The children felt accused of lying and were adamant that the red rectangle was an accurate representation of the man at the foot of their beds. Acting on instinct, the psychologist showed one child's red rectangle to another and asked what it was. Each time, without hesitation, the child identified it as Mr. Smile. None of the children knew the others had drawn the same thing, yet their answers were identical. Cameras and baby monitors were installed in the children's bedrooms. Parents, gripped with fear, stayed awake night after night watching the monitors. Yet no one entered or exited the rooms. The only sounds were the children's soft snores or occasional murmurs in their sleep. After nearly 2 weeks of surveillance, doubts began to creep in. Many started to question whether Mr. Smile had ever existed. Some psychiatrists suggested the phenomenon was a form of shared delusion, while others speculated it stemmed from a TV show or movie the children might have seen, sparking similar dreams or imaginings. Then, one of the boys disappeared. The camera in his room went dark at around 2 a.m. His mother, alerted by the monitor's sudden failure, rushed to his bedroom. It took her less than a minute to get there, but the boy was gone. There was no sign of forced entry or exit, no trace of struggle. The only clue was a lingering smell of cotton candy in the air. A search yielded nothing. No one had seen anything unusual, and no evidence pointed to how the boy had vanished. Less than a week later, one of the girls who had spoken of Mr. Smile disappeared too. Then another child, and another. One by one, they vanished without a trace, until only 4 of the original children remained. The 4 remaining children began to speak more openly about how Mr. Smile and his friends were coming to take them away. When questioned about these friends, they described how Mr. Smile lived with other smiling figures in a place they called the Happy Place. They said it was a beautiful place, already full of people, and that Mr. Smile would take them there soon. According to the children, Mr. Smile communicated with them in their heads. Since he couldn't speak like other people, he would show them vivid images of this place in their minds. Over time, their descriptions grew more unsettling. Within weeks, the children started complaining of headaches and nausea. Teachers at their schools reported that some of them were experiencing vivid hallucinations. 2 of the children began expressing fear, claiming they no longer liked the images of the happy place that Mr. Smile was showing them. One child had a severe episode, screaming uncontrollably for half an hour, begging for the colors to stop. They described the colors as horrible and pleaded for them to go away. Another child revealed that Mr. Smile was now constantly talking to them in their head, telling them terrible things. They insisted they couldn't share what was being said, fearing that their parents would learn of these horrors too. The psychiatrist managed to persuade one of the boys to write down what Mr. Smile was saying, under the promise that no one else would see it. Whatever the boy wrote remains a closely guarded secret, known only to the psychiatrist and the authorities. When asked about it, those involved would grow silent and swiftly change the topic. The children's behavior became increasingly alarming. They stopped sleeping altogether. Security footage showed them sitting upright in bed, eyes wide open, staring unblinkingly at the walls for hours without moving or making a sound. Sedatives had no effect. One girl began carving strange circular patterns into her skin, while two of the boys stopped speaking English entirely. They communicated in an unrecognizable language that no linguist or expert could translate, despite numerous attempts. By the beginning of 1999, all 4 of the remaining children had disappeared. Their vanishings, like those before, left no trace. Thorough searches turned up nothing. No clues, no suspects, and no evidence. It was as though they had simply dissolved into thin air. To this day, none of the children have been found. Their fates an enduring mystery.